request the dignitaries to be on the dais, please. May now request our chairman to welcome our chief guest, Shri Deepak Gaisa ji, with a bouquet. Request our chairman to welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Ram Bogle ji. May now request our chairman, Shri Vijay Bedekar ji, to share his views about the startups, the entrepreneurship, and about VPM. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. I hope you have received this, otherwise you can distribute this to them. Well, friends, let me also greet you for this 66th Republican Day. And Vidya Prasarak Mandal, which is committed to quality education, novelty in education, is going to launch one more program today. Very recently, we have launched two programs at Velneshwar. One is Council of Senior Scientists, which was inaugurated by none less than Dr. Anil Kakodkar. And other was Center for Entrepreneur and Skill Development, which was inaugurated by Sri Deepak Gaisa. Very briefly, I will tell you the reasons for these two, because it has some continuity with today's startup program. All professional colleges, especially engineering, medical, they find paucity or shortage of senior teachers. It's quite obvious because there is such a huge development, horizontal development. And then to get senior teachers is a problem. In Mumbai, Pune and surrounding areas, we find that large number of senior scientists are retiring from institutions like BRC, TIFR and such other organizations. And they have been working on a very top class projects. And after retirement, many of them, they express that they would like to teach also. Now, it's not easy because we have to ultimately match the requirements of a professional college, the syllabus of the university, and the skills of a teacher. So a pilot run was conducted for about a year at Velneshwar, and we found it very, very useful to the students. And even the scientists got acclimatized to those training programs very soon, very quickly they could adjust. And then we launched this program, and we are extremely happy that as far as Velneshwar is concerned, practically every month we have a couple of these senior scientists going there, and we have 6 streams there, mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, computer, civil engineering. So in one of these branches, these people go there and teach to the students. And there's something called projects now. So these scientists are of great help for project developments. The second was also we were working in this campus, because this campus we found that there's a large number of undergraduates, more than 1,000 or maybe 1,500, from our arts, science, commerce, polytechnic, law, management institutions, they come out. And it has been a practice for last many years that we have a placement cell in all these colleges. But we found that most of this becomes a ritualistic, because the industries, they want cheap labor, and the boys also want to have some experience. But a post-employment continuity in that particular industry, it starts dwindling. And the most important reason is the industry feels that they are not employable. They don't get the graduates what they want. So we thought that we can train them. There are many things like simple etiquettes, dress code, mannerism, even writing your own CV, communication skill, articulation skill. They are required for any industry. So that's how we started that, and that program also will be implemented more effectively from this academic year, because now exams would get over and our final year students, every college would give the numbers of at least 25-30 students, and that's how the program would start soon. Along with that, we found that it is not possible only to give employment. It's very difficult, it's problematic. So our Prime Minister also, and in general also, that they thought that unless and until there is a entrepreneurship development, it's very difficult that the younger generation can get desired jobs. And that's very important also, that we have a huge country, we have such a large population, educated and skilled population. What is required is making little more refinement in their approach and their skill development and other things. So government started on large scale, Make in India, skill development, Digital India, and I also started now Startup and Stand Up India. Now that's what is required. They are, I don't think you will also imagine that government is quite serious about this, that they want to see that all younger generation gets involved in this program somewhere. However, it is easier to say, but it's very, very difficult to implement from the government portals. You know, there are lots of obstacles, there are lots of problems, there is bureaucracy, understandable. So what we can do it as a educational institution, and we thought that the best way is to start our own course of startups. And that's why this is a course which we are going to start today. That is startups only. Now why these startups, as I told you, yes, employment, obviously not that all are going to go for startups. But while discussing also with the students, we found that there are very talented students we have. And if we give them some push, some experience, some more inputs to them, because starting a business earlier days, it was very easy. You know, it was a mostly familial businesses. They used to join their parents' business. A newcomer was difficult to start a business for a newcomer. And that's quite obvious from getting place and so many legal tangles and finance. So he would go and ask somebody, friend or father's friend or somebody, and that's how he would start. But you know that things have changed. After globalization, it's very competitive, and it's not easy that you just can go and stand and somebody will buy something from you. You all are very choosy. You're not going to buy something because some of your friends, maybe first time, but next time you'll be very choosy. You want good quality, you want good presentation, you want good skills. And that's an education. That's not easy. Some are born with those skills, but there are very few. But it can be cultivated, it can be enriched by education. And that's what we thought, that we can do it by educating our fresh graduates. Now we are not at all thinking that after this course you can start your startup next month. It's not possible also. The whole idea is to give you an education. Again and again I am insisting and using that word, education, a very scientific process to make your mindset, educate you, give you adequate inputs from legal to many other facets of this activity so that you can develop. And we would help you further also. But to give you that initial training is the whole purpose of this course. And there are courses already available from family business to many things in the market. But how this course is different, number one, it is targeted to VPM students because we have such large number of students that we would target our own students. But doesn't mean we are going to stop outsiders, not at all. This is a course open to everyone. Now what is the difference in this course? If you have gone through, government has already started a process, but this is a course where you get some basic training from economics, marketing, finance, legal activities, and all those things would be there. But beyond that, there is something which you must have heard our Prime Minister talking, and if you go through the draft of startups of government, you will find again and again a word used there, novelty, newness. Now, this is something very difficult. This is very difficult. And that newness doesn't mean, novelty doesn't mean you have to invent something new. It's very, very, still more difficult. But here, new means a new approach. Now, you know, you can buy everything when you go to a grocery shop. But a new platform came of e-commerce, and you all know those portals. You know, you must be buying many things from them. Earlier, you know, Amazon. It was a new concept that you can get any book. Now, these are the new concepts. Delivering book, only the platform has changed. And that's not easy. You see. The whole program development and other things and refining and developing more, that's where their intelligence and their teamwork counts. So here we would like you to know what is that newness is, what that novelty is. And if you read very carefully, government also has said that they would waive your 80% fees for your patent registration. Now this is a big thing. Now that's another lacuna in our whole education system or mindset of any business. We never think about a patent. Never. We never bothered. We never understand what that process is. But that's essential, because once you understand that you have to patent something, you may not get a patent, but simply try to follow that procedure of getting a patent and you'll understand and realize what novelty is. So that undergoing that procedure of filing intellectual property right, this thing itself is important, which is lacking. Even in the good industries it is lacking. They either borrow or expired patents they try to use. But number of patents through India are miserably low. So unless until we educate you through this program that what patent is, it is not possible, because it's an education, it's not simple thing also. So that's one part which is not probably available with this intensity and extensive training in other courses. We thought that this should be a part of this course. And another thing which is again important is design. If you are going to go with a product here, product means physical product, you require a design. Not only that, but again whatever you are going to sell, again needs a design. So in wider this thing, design, yes, how you are going to package your this thing, you have to have. That's why you see that all foreign goods or Western goods, you always get attracted. Your first look itself, you feel like purchasing that, whether even if you don't require, you feel like purchasing. And that's the design. So every mobile phone you find there is something new they add, content-wise or design-wise. And you feel that you should purchase that, though you have a phone. And that's true for everything, whether it is a mixer, whether it is a refrigerator or anything. Or they would change the packaging. Here I don't mean the physical packaging, but the way they approach you, or the way they attack you through markets, that design is totally different. So you have to start thinking from those points of views, that when starting a startup doesn't mean only finance, doesn't mean only market or selling. Unless until you have these plus points, unless until you have this strength of knowing what novelty is, what newness is, unless until you try to get some patent, or if you know how to get patent or how to find out expiry dates of patents, that all you will learn then. Even if you don't invent something new, you know somebody has invented and you can make use of that, how legally you can do that. So this is going to be a very important, very ambitious course of Vidya Prasarak Mandal. My very humble request to the youngsters here and even the teachers, take it quite seriously. You see, you must have a leadership. Unless and until you get that, such a huge number of students we have in the campus. And I am very sure they are very creative and inventive and very good in their approach otherwise. So let them try for their jobs, there is nothing wrong in that. But along with that, let them also start thinking. And I can appeal to here those youngsters here, that there are two stalwarts are sitting here. They would share their experiences with you about their business, about how they succeeded in their whole business field. So take it quite seriously. Take their experiences also seriously. And then enroll in large numbers for these programs. That's a very small program. It's totally 100 hours, that's 3 months. But another last thing I will tell you, important part is you will have to do, to get a certification, you will have to complete a dummy startup. So once you get that information, you will have to actually do some work. It's a dummy startup that you may elaborate and you can go take further and then actually can have a startup. But to produce something, you will have to give a project, or you will have to actually work on that and submit that dummy project startup, and then you will get the certification. So friends, with this introduction, without taking much of your time, I would request Sriyut Ram Bhogle to address you on this subject. And I don't have to introduce him to you. You all know Nirlip, and he is also involved in many other industrial products. So he himself will explain you what that business is and what he means by startup. Thank you. And Ram Bhogle.
Dr. Vijay Bedekar, Shri Deepak Ghaisas, faculty members of this educational institution, and my young friends. Greetings on occasion of Republic Day, and a very good morning to all of you. Startup, stand-up are new buzzwords. Entrepreneurship was once upon a time a new buzzword about 35 years ago. We are taking that entrepreneurship a step forward. But I belong to brick and mortar economy. I belong to forming metals, making products out of it, selling it through the regular dealerships, channels. Whereas my friend Deepak works in the virtual world, and he is fairly good at that. So we actually represent two different worlds. One is the old economy world, which is called brick and mortar economy. Another is the virtual world, or information technology enabled world. And startup typically is a word that belongs to the new economy. Entrepreneurship is a word that belongs to the old economy. So how do we approach this startup? How do I look at startup? So I say, as a student, if I want to do something, if I have a desire to do something, that's the beginning. But what do I want to do? If I want to do something, one of the best options that was available all time was to find a good organization, join it, and start serving. So you start earning. And then within a matter of few months, you start contributing. So your earnings are justified. But then someone says that, no, I want to do something new. I want to do something different. So that's where the innovation comes. But what is that different that you want to do? No, I don't want to join service. So what's it that you would want to do? Okay, choose a profession, maybe a lawyer, a doctor, or a consultant, a chartered accountant, and enter into a profession. That's entrepreneurship. It certainly is entrepreneurship, because you are on your own. You have to find your own ways. Nobody is there to actually hold your hand and guide you, and nobody is assuring you a payment at the end of the month. You have to earn your own. So that's entrepreneurship. But is it different, very different from what people have been doing for ages? Is it something new? Not really. So what's new? Okay, I want to do something different, something new, but something at global scale or national scale. Then you are adding one more dimension that makes it a little different from what people have been doing. Not many people have gone national and very few have gone global. So that's something new that you want to do. But if you add another dimension to it and say that I want to do it in 3 years, I want to do it in 3 years, then I would say you are very close to a startup. Because scalability, reaching beyond geographical borders, is essential part of a startup. And how is it possible? Making non-stick cookware like Nirlep and reaching out to the entire nation took us more than 10 years. So we started in 67, my father started it, and by the time we were national brand, it was 76, 77, so almost 10 years. Taking it global, by 1985-86, we were exporting to many countries around India, almost the entire rim around India, starting from the so-called Middle East to Far East. And I would say we had become global because we were also exporting to countries like Poland, Hungary. So we had become a little global, but it almost took us 20 years to do that. Would we qualify to be a startup? Not in the new definition. So how is that people are able to scale up and become global within a matter of few years, a couple of years? That's thanks to IT and IT-enabled industry that we have today, where geographical borders really do not matter. When we buy from Amazon, we are not really buying from Mumbai, we are not buying from Aurangabad, we are not buying from Karnataka or Uttar Pradesh, we are actually buying from some other country. The goods could come from anywhere in the world and would be delivered to your house. And therefore, scalability is very easy because Amazon is not only accessible from Thane or Pune or Nasik. Anyone sitting anywhere having an internet connection could access Amazon site and order anything and get it from anywhere in the world. So scalability becomes possible. In a brick and mortar economy, that was not possible. So what implications does it have on youngsters? As I say, you are not really bound by geographical borders. You are not bound by the product ideas that used to be local or statewide or national. You could really pick up any idea that can sell somewhere else in the world and do it sitting here in Thane. That's the possibility thanks to technology. This did not exist 30, 35 years ago. This did not exist 60 years ago when our family went into business. But in the era in which you are, it is possible. I remember the word startup was always heard whenever there was a discussion about Silicon Valley in US. Now, in India, whenever we hear the word startup, it is mostly about Hyderabad or Bangalore. And those who are aspiring to enter into this new economy and start something new that can be scaled up very fast, always think of going to these places. They don't want to locate their businesses in cities like Aurangabad or Nasik. People you talk to, the youngsters you talk to, they want to be in Bangalore. Why do they want to be in Bangalore when internet is available in any other city? It's because of the environment. In Bangalore, you have many youngsters who are either owning a startup, aspiring to startup, or working for a startup. So environment matters. Why was it that in Silicon Valley, startups could start up and prosper? Why couldn't they do it in some other country? I always think that it is possible to do it only where people respect and protect entrepreneurship, freedom. Freedom to do what? Freedom to succeed, freedom to create wealth, freedom to protect your ideas by law. Then freedom to exploit that idea to its hilt to create wealth so that it can be reinvested in industry, in a new startup. And such environment existed in US. But is it about success? Startup is not all about success, because you see a few startups which have become very successful. It could be Facebook, it could be some such Amazon, or maybe you have many such startups, Uber, you name it, and you have these startups. But these are successful startups. Behind every successful startup, I'm sure, and I'm sure Mr. Gaisas would comment on that, there would be plenty of failures. If there is a one successful startup, I'm sure there would be at least 100 or maybe 500, or even it could be 1,000 startups which have died very early, which couldn't really take off. And this is not to discourage you, but this is to point out that in US, they do celebrate successes, but they respect failures. They respect failures. And why do they respect failures? Because in every failure, there is something to learn. In every failure, there is something to learn. And it is that learning that they have learned to respect. Do we do that? Are we willing to fail? How many of you would like to fail? Okay, only a few. And how many of you would like to succeed? Almost everybody, or many more. So why do we want to succeed? Why are we afraid of failure? Why do we want to avoid failure? Is because we don't respect failure. We look down upon failures. And unless as a society we learn to respect failures, learn to respect the learnings from that failure and bring them on table, discuss them and internalize them so that we avoid failures in future, or we avoid similar failures in future, we will not really be able to jump into this startup wagon. Because startup is about success, startup is about scalability, but startup is also about failures. And if we really want to have the freedom of entrepreneurship, then we have to learn not to fear. Not only respect failure, but not to fear failure. Failure is part of the game, and therefore if I fail, there is nothing wrong in it. I must learn from it, and I must ensure that I create wealth out of my failure. Now, how do you create wealth out of your failure? See, if you know what made you fail, and if you know how to avoid that failure, that's a knowledge. That's a knowledge, and money is made out of knowledge, not out of products. In the new world, where we say it's a information-driven economy, money is made out of knowledge, not out of products. Knowledge how to market products can make you money. It's not essential that you must have a product. What is essential is you must know how to scale up, how to market. So knowledge is equal to money in the new economy. So once you learn not to fear, how do you tell your financial institutions not to fear failure? In US, you could garner a lot of capital for a startup. Is that possible in India? Let me share you some experiences that we had long time ago. And I am saying long time ago because this is a story about 30 years back. But things in financial institutions have not changed much. 30 years ago, we had a unique idea and we wanted to actually implement it in our business, and it needed a lot of capital. So we went to the bankers, but the bankers were not sure about the idea because it was mostly about idea and it was very little about an asset. And the bankers said we could fund the asset. If you have something to mortgage, if you have something to hypothecate, we can give you money against that. So we said if financial institutions are not ready, then let's look at venture capitals. And then ICICI had a venture capital fund. So we went to this venture capital fund. To our surprise, the agreements that venture capital funds had were worse than the banks would have. So they wanted us to mortgage our personal property. They wanted us to give personal guarantees. So where was the venture capital? It was actually a funding. It was like borrowing from a sahukar, a money lender. It was no better than that. In fact, it was worse than that because it was institutionalized. A sahukar doesn't have an institution, so he has some freedom of taking decisions. He is enterprising in his approach, but the institution wasn't enterprising in its approach. And finally, it took us a long time to implement that idea. And as you know, you are not the only one getting that idea. In the world, at the same time, there would be many others who would be thinking on the same lines and getting the same idea. So if there is a time delay between getting an idea and implementing it, then many others may have already implemented it and it doesn't remain unique. Though it still gets you money, but it's not something unique that you are doing. It's not something new that you are doing. Though for you it's new, but for the world it's not new. The world has already seen it somewhere in some form or the other. So, unless you have financial structures, institutions, individuals who are willing to bet on ideas, not on a parcel of a land, not on a flat, not on an industry, not on machines, only on idea. So you are wearing a very old shirt, maybe worn out chappals, and a bright idea, and people are willing to bet money on you, on your idea, on your passion. There's nothing to mortgage. Unless we create that kind of an environment, startups would be very difficult to have. I'm not saying that we won't have, but they would be very difficult to have. So we need to create this kind of an environment in our society where people are willing to take risk. People are willing to bet on ideas. Why is it that we do not have such an environment? Because we are risk averse. Why are we risk averse? Because in our genetic memory, bad times still persist. When we had nothing to eat, when we had no jobs, when we had no cars, no good roads, no freedom to take decisions. See, all that still persists in our genetic memory. And unless we wipe that memory out and say that if I fell, there would be a social net that would catch me. It wouldn't let me die, it would help me to stand up again. Once we have that kind of assurance, I am sure there would be more and more startups, because then you would not fear the failure. It would not be the end of the world for you. In my generation, one failure in business was almost end of world for entrepreneurship. The fellow would then look for a job and take the next job available, not the next best, the next job available. But that's not the case today. That's not the case today. Things are changing. The government is changing. The Prime Minister is wanting to support startups. He is creating a financial backup for those startups, though the money committed may appear to be very small. 500 crores, 1,000 crores. When you know that in a hire a taxi kind of a startup, people invest 4,500 crores or 6,000 crores. What is 500 crores? What is 1,000 crore? But this is a beginning. This is a new thinking in the government. And I am sure, like the government enacted that 2% of your profits to be spent on social causes, a time would come when government would say that, okay, 10% of the government earnings. Now I am not talking of taxing the corporates or taxing the individuals. I am saying that the government would come up with this policy that we collect about 10 lakh crore rupees every year in taxes. So 10% of that we earmark for startups. So we'll bet on startups. And we'll give that money freely to entrepreneurs, new generation entrepreneurs with new ideas. And let's see what happens. I'm sure there's no dearth of enterprising youngsters in this country. There's no dearth of new ideas coming to all your fertile minds. But there is an apprehension to actually speak about them. There's much more apprehension about actually trying to implement them. And once the environment changes, once we make it possible for us to respect failures, once we make it possible for all our financial institutions to bet on ideas, I am sure there would be many more startups in this country. This country would see what even Silicon Valley has not seen. Because if you really read about Silicon Valley, a lot of it is about India. A lot of it is about Indians who migrated and went to US in search of greener pastures, and they were the ones who risked. They were the ones who created startups. So the innovation, the spirit of enterprise is there in our genetic memory, which probably has been suppressed by our genetic memories of scarcities, failures, lack of freedom. I think once this is wiped out, the original spirit of enterprise will come out and we will have many more startups. Coming to the courses that this institution is going to offer in startups. My friends, let me tell you, startup is about crazily being passionate about an idea. It is not about rules, regulations. It's not about really structured thinking in the beginning. Later on, when you want to make it on a global scale, you do need all these things. But initially, it is not about that. But if you have these inputs to begin with, and if you do not let them actually suppress your instincts of freedom, instincts of new ideas, instinct of crazily implementing something, passionately implementing something, then you can certainly be a part of the startups. You could be one of the startups. But if all this structured thinking suppresses your instincts, then maybe it's counterproductive. Giving you all the inputs about laws and rules and regulations could prove to be counterproductive. So while you are undergoing all those courses and in taking those inputs, which are essential, don't think too much about them. Just remember them, but forget them when you are thinking about a crazy idea, a so-called crazy idea. Forget them when we want to passionately implement it. Do it, and then there would be someone who would take care of all these nitty-gritties of the regulation framework and all other things that actually are a drag on any such freedom. So my friends, wish you all the best, and I'm sure there would be a lot more coming from Deepak ji, because he has been a successful entrepreneur in this new economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri Bhogle ji. And I think Dr. Joshi can now take a note of this, that one of the parts of this syllabus can be some lectures like this. And I'm sure he has inspired many youngsters here. And you may get a big crowd here with you to enroll for this course. Well, friends, I will just tell you about failures. He said that's quite important. We learn out of failures. And anywhere, to find out one molecule of new drug, there are hundreds and thousands of failures there. And then you get one new drug. So I can tell you one story which is very interesting about failure. I was the chairman of Bharat Sahakari Bank, and one young boy came to me for help. Obviously, as he said, the bank, it was not possible to offer him any financial help. He had nothing with him to hypothecate. But he was coming in, a very young boy with a extremely good, obsessed with some entrepreneurship and other things, and he was coming and again telling, doctor, no, I'll do this. I am telling you. I said, no point of you telling, but bank wants some hypothecation, what can you do? He said, no, I don't have anything, this and that. And I said, come. I gave him some money. Now it was very unfortunate that he was struggling hard, but he couldn't keep his promise that money can be returned. So he came back, he was very honest. Doctor, it was difficult. I need some more money. I said, friend, already I have given you, you have to now show something more. मला तो म्हणाला, अहो डॉक्टर, अपयश यशाची पहिली पायरी असते हो. मी त्याला म्हटलं, राजा, पहिली पायरी मला माहिती आहे, पण जिना करू नकोस तुला मी मदत करायला तयार आहे. So don't go to that extent, that is a fun, but what he said is very essential, that failure has to be there. Without failure you cannot progress. But you have to take as a part of knowledge, why you have failed is more important than you failed. Of course, that is not applicable to your exams. Going further, I don't have to again introduce you Deepak Gaisas. To this, Thorle Barriera also is not new. So without taking much of your time, I request Deepak Gaisas to address.
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much to Dr. Bedekar for inviting me. And thanks to Mr. Bhogle, who came all the way from Aurangabad to address this gathering. And we heard a lot of experiences from horse's mouth. I mean, that's where the true entrepreneur came up. We all of us saw it happening right from our childhood. And every kitchen, I'm sure, is proud of carrying his products, not only in India, outside India as well. And when globalization was not talked about, I think he did the global market, sitting in Aurangabad, just showing it to the world that it's not geography that matters, but it's the quality of the product that matters. I mean, any startup, I think this is the best lesson that you can have. If you have the quality of your idea or product, the success is guaranteed. And I think Nirlep is the classic example of that. And he continues to maintain that. That's beauty. Where I probably don't agree with him is, he said 30 years back all of us were entrepreneurs and now we are startups. I'm happy to be younger. But startup is a concept. I mean, entrepreneurs those days also did something initially was called startup, but it was not called startup. In Marathi, we call it Dhandyat Padla. So failure is expected. But as you rightly said, genetically we are not built, at least those who were born before independence, people like me who were born much after independence, and generation Y or Z, which is born after 1990, has not at all seen failures. They are not living here to survive. They are living here to prosper. And that we can see very clearly from banking industry, for example, why retail loans and car mortgages and car loans and house loans started suddenly jumping up is because the mindset of youngsters became that if today my salary is so much or my earning is so much, I'm going to increase that as we go along, and therefore I can get my car today by taking loan, or take my house today by taking loan, because I can give those EMIs, which was not the mindset of people who were born before 1960. They were worried whether my income will sustain and therefore I can actually loan it out. And especially if you are Maharashtrian, then taking a loan was a sin. And if you take typical business communities in India like Marwadis or Gujaratis, they say doing any business with your own money is a sin. You have to take money from institutions. So that is a mindset difference. But I think the new generation is changed completely, because the kind of exposure that they have got. I mean, fathers in most of the houses have lost their role, because whenever I used to have my question, I used to go and ask my father. Today people Google it. So they don't get that genetic carry on from father as a thought process to the next generation. It is Google that gives that process. So genetic learning has substantially changed because of, you call it internet, or because of information technology. And therefore what new kids learn is much different than how we learned, because we had some genetic learning coming down. But when I started company, I mean, I am also coming from a typical Maharashtrian middle class family. I did my schooling in Marathi. Though I came up in the board ranking, I never thought I'll be in business, because that was never done by anybody in the family, or rather generations, 7 generations before, to my best of my knowledge. But when we came up to a level where we thought in 87, 88 that I should change my line, because I was in food industry before, and then I said I must come to IT when IT was not much popular. I think that was the right decision in the first place. So started learning IT things, technology, and then soon I realized that even though I'm a chartered accountant by training, IT does not mean technology. Technology is a part of word IT, information technology. What it also means the information, and technology is the enabler of information. And if that is the case, information should have the similar role to play, and that's how we started the banking product company. And when globalization again was not much talked about, we went to 130 countries with 600 plus financial institutions using our software product, which is made in India product, which is again a very different concept from typical Indian IT companies, which were service-oriented companies. Not a single company has a successful product story before. And that's how we created the value. Now, last 18 months, I mean, actually, whatever I wanted to talk, I think Mr. Bhogle has already said it. So I'm not going to repeat this. So I'm just changing my speech totally. Last 18 months, what we are doing, or rather last 4 to 5 years, after great success in iFlex, on IT, I said at age of 50, I must change something, a different line altogether, and do another startup. So I started, 10 years back, I went on the board of a pharma company to understand what the healthcare industry is. I actually bought books on molecular biology. Fortunately, my wife is cytogenesis, so I started reading her books. And then realized I can do something different in biotechnology. So I started working on those ideas. And in Paris, I met a scientist who is a stem cell scientist, and he works on dental stem cells, which was a very, very unique concept at that time. Dental stem cells were found in 1998. That our tooth have the stem cells, which are called mesenchymal stem cells, and they can actually regenerate tissues in the body. And the world was looking for regenerative technology whereby degenerative diseases can be overtaken, because everyone was worried about the quality of life, how you live between 70 and 90, or 70 and 100, or whatever the life expectancy is. And then I thought maybe this is a good idea to work on. So I started reading more about it, and personally I was convinced I could build my own conviction and passion that this is going to be the future. The same future of IT. When I entered IT in '87, nobody knew about IT. I thought biotechnology is the next one. And I can tell you today, another 2 decades time, nanotechnology will be having the similar position. So probably after 10 years, I will start something on nanotechnology. So you kids must start studying about nanotechnology now. That's what I mean. And then today I got 3 companies on biotechnology. We work very well. We've got a lab in Chennai, we are in 17 cities in India. We're trying to get in Singapore and Middle East. But that's a very exciting field. So another thing that must happen in startup is you personally should be excited about that idea. If you're not personally excited about the idea, because there are many people who come after such lectures that, sir, give me an idea, now I want to do a startup. If I have an idea, I will do myself. Why should I tell you? So that idea must come from you. That is very important, and that should be very exciting for you. And that excitement should not be Monday morning excitement, what we call it. Because over weekend you see something, meet some friends, get some idea, and Monday morning you get up saying that, wow, I got idea, I must do it. And that entire excitement goes away by Monday evening, and then Tuesday again you are wondering what I should do. So that is not idea. Idea is something which is revolutionary. It will change the world. Very few people can get such ideas. But you should feel that this is my idea and it will change the world. Moment you feel and get conviction about it, you start getting passion amongst yourselves. Now, all these things cannot be taught in any course. This is your own thinking. My fear today is a kind of time spending that all youngsters do, and I got 2 sons, so I can tell you by my own experience, that they're so engrossed in their handset devices that they don't get time to get their own idea. Because in our culture or any learning process, there is something called Chintan and Manan, that what you learn, there is some time you should spend on thinking, introspecting what we learned. Today the information is flowing on you so much that you don't get time to introspect, to think about it. So there is less chance that you will get ideas. So please don't do that. I'm not saying don't use phones, don't use iPads or tabs or something. Feel connected, but connect first with yourself. That's how idea comes. So I keep on trying, analyzing how the ideas come. And last 18 months, we started 2 funds called Xfinity. It is purely for startups. The first fund we started 18 months back with 150 crores. And now the second fund is for 250 crores. And the kind of success, encouragement that we saw, we already started getting formation of the third fund. And these are all SEBI approved funds. So we get investors, we actually market them and so on. But beauty is that 18 months we got more than 400 ideas. And out of those 400 ideas, we could only shortlist 18. And out of those 18, we actually funded 10. So that was the first one. Now, second fund will start again doing the same thing. But the fact that we could get 400 ideas, that means Indian youngsters are getting a lot of ideas. And that is what I say, that genetic learning has not passed on from the earlier generation. This is a new generation thinking. But please spend some time with yourself. Develop your own idea, which is very important. And the first question you should ask, is it a new idea or somebody else must have thought about this? And why I am the only smart guy in the world that I am thinking of this idea? And I'll give an example. A guy came out with the idea one day that, no, I should start a business of car hire. Now, is it an innovative idea? No, the car hire is not an innovative idea. So he thought, okay, who else has thought about this? So Avis has thought about it, Rent-A-Car has thought about it. And then he noticed that all these offices of Avis alike, and Eurocar and all, are all in the airports. Because most of the Western countries, you land up on the airport, hire a car, drive it down, leave it to some other airport, to Avis office, leave it there, pay the bill, and get off the flight. So all the offices are on the airports. Now, if I again open one more office on the airport, I'm unlikely to be successful because these all guys have established their businesses. I can't be successful. So what is that I should do differently? Please remember, if you want to make money in life, there are only 3 ways you can make it. By doing something better than others are doing. That means if I open the car shop, rent-a-car shop on the airport, I should be doing something better. That means my car should be better or my rate should be lesser. I can't do that because then it's not feasible. Because these are all established players. Second way I can do it, I should do something different. So what different I can make? And then he realized, last 2 times his car failed on the highway. He had no other recourse to get another car. So he had a problem. So many of the ideas come with the problem, or what we call them in management terms is a pain point. Now we just concluded this Sahitya Sammelan. So many people who get the pain point think of a poem. The entire poetry came out of pain. But I think you should not get into a poem. You should get into an idea that how can solve it. So he said, okay, I mean, that's a different way to approach this rent-a-car business. So he started his first office in a city and advertised that anyone who gets a bad car on the road, call up this 1-800 number. I will come with the car, give that car to you, tow your car back. He opened a garage because then obviously you have to put the car in his garage. I'll repair it, and the moment the car is repaired, I'll give you a call, drop my car back and take your car. Can you imagine he in the United States today has 35% market share of the rent-a-car. Now this is where I make a different way of approaching, and that's how the ideas come. So idea was not new, idea was same. But he made something different and tried to solve his own pain point that he got. Now this is not a US typical. In India, for example, I don't know how many of you have heard of redbus.com. Now this young guy who was a Hyderabadi guy, Telugu speaking, was studying in IIM Ahmedabad, and every time vacation would come, he has to go back to Hyderabad and realize that he cannot book a bus ticket to Hyderabad because there were 2 or 3 changes of buses that he had to do. Pain point. Now, simple thing he could have done is, oh my God, this country is bad, the buses are bad, roads are bad, blah, blah, blah. All of us say that. Very simple to say. He said, no, I must do something. I mean, this is the idea, this is a pain point, I must create a solution for it. So any idea if you think, first thing you should see, has anyone thought about it? If anyone has thought about it, why he or she left it alone? Why did not implement it? They must have learned something in the process, in that failure. Do I learn something out of that failure? If you realize that nobody has thought about this idea, I'm the first one probably to think about this idea, The second question or third question you should ask is, am I solving somebody's problem? Because that is the way you can be doing your business. Unless you're solving somebody's problem, unless you're Steve Jobs. I mean, Steve Jobs solved nobody's problem. None of us wanted iPod, but he gave iPod, and today, rest is the history. Because all of a sudden, iPod became the trend. So all of us are not Steve Jobs, so we can't create trends, but we can solve somebody's problem and therefore get that idea into the business solution. So this guy created a complete network, or the first time he created the network of only bus owners who were carrying passengers from Ahmedabad to Mumbai, Mumbai to Hyderabad, or Solapur to Hyderabad, or something like that. So he got 3 bus contractors together and started booking his tickets from one point. Today he has got more than 400 bus operators in India registered with him, and you can book literally from anywhere to anywhere a bus ticket with multiple routes, like airline tickets you book. Now today the success is obviously measured not by profits in startups. I mean, that's probably, Mr. Bhogle, the differences between entrepreneur and, because entrepreneurs were dying to make profits. How soon I can make profits? Startups are so lazy, they don't want to make profits. Amazon is, after 15 years, is still not made profits. So why you call it successful? You call it successful because they are valued differently. I mean, few $1 billion valuation of Flipkart between 2005 to 2010 to 2015, the valuation has gone up so substantially that suddenly that becomes successful. I'm on the board of Shoppers Stop. We are in retail business, and we are competing with a competition who doesn't intend to make profits. It's very difficult to compete with anybody who doesn't want to make profits, because the entire your infrastructure, entire your business model is based on to make profits. But the startups need not make profits. How lucky we can be. Mr. Bhogle can vouch that all your time goes mainly into ensuring that the profits are made in the end of the day. But startups don't have to make profits. I don't know how many of you saw today's Economic Times. The morning news was this Paytm has already first year posted some 240 crores losses. 240 crores losses in a payment gateway. Can you imagine? But that's the era of startups. Okay? So you don't have to make profits. So you're solving somebody's problem. The next question you should ask is, am I creating entry barriers? And entry barriers can be created by creating IPR, intellectual property rights, which are protected. Now, when I started stem cell business, the first thing we did, we created our own technique to separate dental pulp to mesenchymal stem cells. And that stem cell separation was a typical process that we could evolve. And the first thing we did is went and filed for the patent. Why? That nobody else with the same using the same technique can enter this business. So whenever you get the idea, but please remember, your idea cannot be patented. The process that you can get out of it or the product that you can get out of it can be patented. Process patented are little difficult to defend. Why? Because if I achieve A to D by doing A, B, C, D processes, and I patent that, somebody else can do A, D, C, B and achieve the same thing, he can have another patent. I don't want to get into more technicalities, but process patent is difficult to protect. Product patent is very good to protect. So you need to have that product patent done. And that is how you create those entry barriers. And they are very, very important. Next question you should ask to yourself when you get that idea, is the timing right? But there are many ideas in Silicon Valley, for example, they failed, not because the idea was bad, or not because the execution was bad, but the timing was bad. I don't know how many of you remember, but 98, 99, 2000 era, we called dot-com bust. Dot-com companies came with a great valuation, people invested in Silicon Valley, and everybody lost the money. We call it dot-com bust. Now, was that model so bad? Answer is no, but they were ahead of time. And why? Because the ecosystem which was required for dot-com, for example, today, all of us have 1 MB, minimum 1 MB connection in our houses, right? In 98, 99, we used to have a modem with 96 KB connection. You can imagine, you can't even imagine, youngsters can't even imagine that 96 KB connection can be in the house. And that modem used to make noise, trrr, tung, trrr, and within 3 seconds to 10 seconds is to go off and again connect. Now on such connection, if I start buying or selling something or do some business transaction, I'll be frustrated and I will be discouraged to use it. So model was correct, but the time was wrong. So you should always understand whether the time of the idea implementation is right, or am I ahead of time, or am I late. If you are late also, it doesn't pick up. Next question you should ask is, am I going to go global? And if I'm going to go global, please remember your idea implementation has to be very different. Because you have to understand the cultures of various nations, various markets that you're going to get into. Your go-to-market strategy, your product launching has to be entirely different. Your branding has to be entirely different. Fortunately, nowadays, the Indian typical names, like Guru and Mantra and all these are English words now. Probably they're in Oxford Dictionary. But typical Indian name, taking a global brand, probably it is tough to make people understand. Again, I'm saying the era has changed now. In 99, 2000 or 93 when we started, probably those were difficult things to do. So all your right from branding to your implementation, to your architecture, to your design has to be different if you intend to go global. And you must do that from day one because you can't change it subsequently. So going global, you have to have a different way of thinking. But I can assure you that something that is publicly accepted in particular country, in another country, you can be hanged for that. So being on global net is not a simple thing from ethical standards point of view because they are so different in different countries. You have to understand a content that you put on your site or on your portal, whether that is acceptable in the markets where you go. How you refer gender differentiation, how you refer color differentiation has to be understood from point of view of markets where you are going. And what are those ethical standards? If you understand that, you take care of that, then you can go next with the same idea that now since I'm going to launch it, whose market I'm taking out? Because when you start making money, somebody else in the market is going to lose his money or lose his business. For example, if I start a portal and buyer and seller can come and buy and sell to each other, the brokerage community in between is going to lose their money. And those who are going to lose their money, they are not going to like you anymore. And they will try to create hurdles for you. And beforehand, you should know whose money I'm stealing, not stealing, actually taking away. I must ensure that those nuisances from created or to be created by those people are mitigated. It's very important from success point of view. But suddenly you find some quarters of society comes and bangs you. This happened to Uber, for example. Now you remember the rape case that happened in Delhi. What was the headline? Uber driver does this. Now suddenly Uber got banned. Now Uber did not get banned for that particular thing. Uber got banned because the people whose money he was stealing put a pressure on administration saying that please ban them. And this is not Uber's first experience. Uber was challenged by every taxi community in every country. London taxi people, France, Paris taxi guys, New York taxi guys, everybody went on strike because Uber came. Why? Because their money was getting stolen. Their business was being taken away by Uber. And how Uber was running? Uber was a unique model. Sooner or later they got to understand, which is happening in Yellow Cab in Mumbai also. Yellow Cab in Mumbai also opposed Uber and Ola and everybody. Why? Because their bread was taken away by these people. Uber was prepared probably. Today they realize that no, you can't oppose these guys. They are going to be there. It is going to be reality. Why? Because customer has accepted them. Customer loves them. So we need to change. So you can create that what we call as a disruptive innovation, where the entire model of business which was run so far is completely disrupted. And people who are running businesses so far are started changing. That is disruptive innovation. So now the black cabs in London have started their portal. They have started accepting it on cell phone, on mobiles, on GPS and all kind of stuff. So they have started adopting the technology what Uber has. So your idea should change. But before that, you should know whose money I'm going to take, whose business I'm going to eat, and ensure that the nuisances from those guys are mitigated. It's very important. I mean, I can keep on going. Oh, shit. Okay, sorry. Just 2 points I'll make. While doing this, you should also know what is going to be end game. Because when I ask the questions to my idea people or people who come with the ideas, what is your end game in mind? An end game can be you want to do IPO of the company, create value out of it, you want to sell it to somebody, you want to get a strategic investors and so on and so forth. I mean, there are 10 different ways of answering this question. But if I get 3 hours lecture, then probably I can do that. And the last point I'll make, and especially reference to Mr. Bogle when he said it, I want to see that even traditional business gets into these new startup businesses. And I'll very quickly tell you how it can be done. For example, if I go to an auto dealer, I got my car problem, and I want that particular part. Car has 10,000 parts or probably more than that. And when I go with my model number and with the part description, the guy says, no, I can't give it to you. It's not in stock. But you know what is going to happen now with all these new technologies? That this car shop will have a 3D printer. Now he will have a design. And he has designed, he has no part in the inventory, but moment you give him the design number, the part number, he will go to his CAD/CAM directory, take out the design, put the design on 3D printer, and give the part to you within 10 minutes. Now same thing, if Nirlep, I mean Nirlep is one of his businesses, but he has auto parts and he has many other engineering industries. The entire startup business in engineering will be distributed then. That your job will be only to create designs. And instead of making the stocks and making the parts and supplying them to various distributors throughout the country, you have to supply just the 3D printers and the designs. Designs also can be in the cloud, so you don't part with them. And any customer that comes with the requirement of parts, I can just put the design on computer, put the required material in the printer in the right form, the part is created. No inventory, no shipment charges, no central manufacturing, no labor orientation, no land required, nothing. So brick and mortar. Point is, you have to think that way. That idea should come in your mind. In the course that you are going to go through, you will get to go through, will not probably give you that idea, but what will give it to you is out of n factors that are required for success, I think it will fulfill probably 10 or 12 factors. So that your chance of getting success enhances much better way. And if you can do that, I think getting such courses done, sharing, listening to somebody's experiences, understanding, especially the technical people, I understand always that they don't get into this finance and marketing and sales and legal side. I don't expect that this course will make you expert. But you should be aware that these are all red lights when you do startup. And the moment you know that these are red lights, you should be able to take help of some experts or consultants to ensure that before problem hits you, you address it. And the last thing I'll tell you, to become successful, a simple principle you should follow, and I think this course will help you to do that, is no surprises. No startup guy, no entrepreneur appreciates surprise. The surprise can be negative, can be positive. Suddenly I thought always my sale is going to be 100 and that month sales becomes 200 is a surprise. But I hate surprise. I did not know that the sales is going to be 200 is a bad news for me. So no surprises. So today I try to tell you what, as an entrepreneur I feel. I always believe that the new generation of India, startups, is a great opportunity. Any institution where I am on the board, especially management institutes, I hate to see placement records of the institution because that creates the jobs. The only question I ask them, how many students became entrepreneur? I think next time you guys should have more entrepreneurs coming out of you than the people who are seeking jobs. Be a job giver than a job seeker. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri Gaisas. Maybe 2 or 3 questions quickly if you have. Any questions if you have? Startups? Somebody there? Is there any question?
Hello. Yeah. I just want to ask, from where do we get investors for our idea?
Well, today reality is that investors are searching you guys. Okay? Investors are seeking to get the guys with good ideas. So the money is after ideas and not ideas after money. Unlike what Mr. Bogle said that 30 years back the situation was very different with the banks and everybody and hypothecation and so on. There are a lot of angel capital forums. For example, I mean, just to give an example, is there is Mumbai Angels, for example, in Mumbai. Okay, there are India Angels Network. You go on LinkedIn and then you will find so many people who are keen to fund what we call as an angel investor. An angel investor is one who gives you some money without asking many questions, but because he agrees with your idea. Okay, like what Dr. Bedekar talked about, the person whom he gave money, he acted as an angel investor. And there are a lot of angel investors, provided you can convince that angel investor, and you can keep on trying, because you might find 10 people who don't agree with your idea, don't get excited with the idea, but there will be 11th person who will be excited with the idea, right? Because he probably has gone through the same pain point. See, this is all experiences that you share. But how to present your own idea is very, very important. Please don't present any idea on PowerPoint. Okay, because we have stopped taking any presentation. PowerPoint is the worst technology and worst enemy of any new idea. Okay, that is my own opinion. We don't see PowerPoint presentations. Come and talk. Look into my eyes and talk to me. Okay, so I know your heart. I know your passion. I'll ask some stupid questions to you. I see how you don't lose your temper, your temperament, your passion about it. Okay, your conviction, your perseverance. I may ask you to come 4 times, make you wait for 1 hour. Okay, just to test whether you are a person who will make it successful. The idea is one part, execution is another critical part. So if I get convinced with both, I think there are many people who can fund. Okay, so funding, this era of funding is not a problem. There are plenty of them, depending on what ticket size and what idea you have. But you should be able to convince someone about your idea. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Deepak Gaisas. I fully agree with you, because there is no problem of funding. There is a shortage of ideas. Anyway, second one. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Well, I could see myself in most of the situations you talk. Like when Gokhale sir said that there can be, like, you have an idea, but there are many more who have the same idea. And the same situation I faced to me and my friend, we have an idea, but then we got to know that people are there who already are existing with the same idea. And when you said that it should not be a Monday morning idea. And when we got to know that there were like people existing with the same idea, so that became our Monday morning idea. So in such situation, how should we start? Like from where should we begin? We thought we will begin with market research, but is that the right way to start with?
See, I think if you find that your idea is not a new idea, the second thing I said, whether it can be implemented better way. Right? So if you find that you have a unique way or different way of executing that idea or presenting that or launching it in the market or go-to-market strategy, then probably that has got a chance to succeed. But coming first in the market has its first mover advantage, always. So you have to assume that and therefore plan in such a way. You have to also see there are different ways like B2B model versus B2C model. B2C model requires a lot of money to be spent for advertisement, while B2B does not require. B2B, you have to go and convince few businesses to start with, right? B2C, you have to convince masses, which is very, very, I wouldn't say tough, but it is a long drawn process, okay? And a lot of failure get into that. So getting same idea is not a problem. Getting that idea better implemented is a problem. If you can solve that, I think there are people who are already funded probably similar idea can also come and fund you because they find you as a better implementer or executor of that idea and can get funding. But also start for new idea. I mean, ideas, there is no restriction that every person you can have only 2 ideas, right? You can, every day you can have new idea. Every moment you can have new idea. But thing is that you have to verify that, that's what the questions I ask, to ask yourself or to your idea and verify whether they are sort of solving problems ultimately. Yeah?
Yes, any more? We can have one more? Yeah, that lady, yeah, 1 minute. Yeah. Go ahead, no, you go ahead, madam, you go ahead. We'll go later.
We'll come to you.
See, this will depend on your idea and what kind of funding you are looking at. See, in the crowdfunding, getting those funds in time may be a challenge. An investor could put it in one go. So it all depends on what the idea is and how you want to implement it.
Young lady, there, just to add to what Mr. Gokhale said, I'll tell you my views, okay? Generally, I would avoid getting money from individuals, crowdfunding especially, because, for example, if I got 10 lakh rupees and I given you 1 lakh out of that, versus I got 10 crore rupees and I give 1 lakh rupees out of that, the guy who is giving 10 lakh rupees will bother about that 1 lakh. But the guy with 10 crore giving 1 lakh rupees to you will not bother about that. I'm not saying he will write off, but he will not much bother. Okay, but in crowdfunding, suppose you get it from 100 people, out of 100, 80 people will keep on asking you everyday question, where is my money? You will be troubled. You understand what I'm saying? So find people, and that's why getting into a fund and getting the money from there is a little less bothersome. But again, every fund, and because the fund managers are different and therefore it's a different experience with every fund manager. But don't allow investor to stand behind you and look at the business every day from your shoulders and keep on guiding you or disturbing you every day. You hate that, right? So crowdfunding, that possibility is always there because you don't know who all are going to invest and what is the value of that money to each one of them. But fund, you know these things. The fund reputation is known in the market, so it's better to do that. Right? No, sorry.
No, take mic.
Why is it that startups don't make profit and entrepreneurs make profit?
No.
See, as I said, entrepreneurs normally put in their own capital and also take capital from the financial institutions who are sitting on their shoulders and looking at the business. So there is a pressure to make profits. In startups, unfortunately, as Mr. Gaisas rightly pointed out, that the entire game is not about profits, it's about scaling up and valuation. In entrepreneurship, it's not about scaling up and valuation, it is about generating the bottom line. So basically the focus is very different. Ultimately, startups will also have to start making profits, because the valuations would crash if 20 years down the line you are still making losses. I met one youngster who wanted to get into a startup in a new technology arena. He had passed out of IIT and IIM, and his father thought that he should meet me. So he came, and the language that he was speaking was something that was actually a surprise and also something to worry about. See, he was talking about burning first round of capital, burning second round of capital, and that's a language that I don't understand. I said, why do you want to burn? I mean, invest it, use it, but why do you want to burn it? So the very language is that you spend that money, then look for more investments. So that's about startup psychology. But I'm sure every fund that would like to invest would like to make money out of it. So one way of making money is, okay, you increase the valuation and offload at a higher valuation. But finally, the valuation will have to be sustained by profits at some point of time.
Yeah, you, Akashi? Yes, Sandeep. There are many successful startups also making profit.
One question, the same doubt was in my mind, that if there is no profit, then how we can motivate the new generation that you start with new startup. And secondly, suppose some student come with some idea, then what is the exact model in which we should guide them? Suppose there is recently we are working with some solar project, and in which there is LEDs are there and which we normally use. So some students were asking that there is a small strip, they brought it from market and asked me that like that we can make a strip and then it can replace the existing system. So like that, suppose I want to go ahead with this idea, then how should I, as a teacher, how should I guide so that the flow will be towards the good startup and they can be on this track? So is there a model which we can suggest so that one student want to work with something, we can guide them properly till the last end?
Join this course. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think joining this course is one of the ways, but I don't believe that we can guide these people. Okay, first thing you have to be, let them do what they want to do as a free hand. And that's why I discuss those questions. Ask students to ask themselves rather than we asking them. Okay, that please answer these questions and you will realize that realization is very important than imposition, because anytime you say, okay, this is not a good idea, they will not accept that comment. Okay, but let them go to market and see for themselves what it is. Let them discuss that with more people who are in solar business or electrical companies and so on, and they will understand that. These guys are smarter than our generation, but they must realize themselves, and they don't need guidance. They don't need instructions from us, but ensure that they don't fall apart. You know, boost them up. That's I think more important.
That may be the last question now. Just there.
Hello, good morning. I would like to have a suggestion from your side. Okay, I'll be starting my startup soon. So the thing is that my friends and my family is ready to invest some amount of money, whereas I also have few investors. But the investors demand a lot of time and they tell me to wait and etc. So, I mean, I don't understand, like I should go with the money which my friends and family are providing so that I can start quickly, or should I actually wait? I mean, I don't know how long I have to wait for the investors to actually be, be impressed with my idea and then give me money. There's a risk, obviously there's a risk in taking my friends and family's money, because I don't know if I'm not able to pay them back or something, I'll be having that moral tension on me. And same is with the investors, because I'll be bound to give them. So I'm very much confused, like where do I get the money from my parents' family or maybe the investors? It's a very confusing thing for me.
I'm sure you want to be successful, right at the end of the day. My suggestion is, again, is not that is a correct or wrong answer to this. My suggestion or experience is that you should have that perseverance to talk to investors and pursue them. Because pursuing your father or father-in-law is very easy. Father is more difficult, father-in-law is very easy. Right? And they say that father is not your choice, father-in-law is your choice, right? So you can do that. But friends, I will not do. I mean, I don't fund my friends, for example, because then you lose money and friendship both, which is bad, right? So take it from investors, because they impassionately would evaluate your idea, and you require some validation done from somebody who understands market, who seemingly has experience in funding more ventures. And if that person validates that and is ready to fund, okay, then probably I will ask my friends to also participate in equity, not as a loan. Okay, don't make a mistake of taking a loan from anybody, because friends normally will give you loans with the idea of returning that back. Investors will come with the equity participation. Ensure that you have the right equity valuation and participation. And that's why, again, join the course. I mean, I guess that these all things of capital structuring and everything will be told to you about it. And high-risk projects are always taken with equity, and so that you don't have to worry about repaying. Though your moral responsibility always should be to enhance the valuation rather than repaying. So market should pay for that upside. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so if I were you, I would not go with the friends. I would go with the investor, howsoever time he's taking. But see that his intention is to give you money and not he's just taking all the time. Yeah?
See, I would just like to add my experience. In '97, we expanded Nirlep so that we could face multinationals coming to the country. And we had practically invested every penny that we had. We had sold every asset that was of no use to us and invested that money into Nirlep. And then we had also decided as family that we should not be entirely dependent on Nirlep and start something new, so that when Nirlep faces headwinds, we have one more business that's going. But we had put all our money into Nirlep and we had no money to start the new business. So typically, though we had businesses, we were in your situation, where we had to ask money from investors. Of course, the first is to tap your friends, because the family had already put in money in Nirlep. I inquired with friends. I had friends in Dubai, I had friends elsewhere. There were two types of friends offering money. One was who were worried about the returns on that money. And the other friends who said that, Ram, you are asking for money, you want to start something new. Okay, this is my money. This is my check. I said, but the company's name is not there. He says, I am writing a check for an amount, put the name and put it in bank whenever you have the company. I said, what if this business fails? The answer that came from one set of friends was, we would think that we were walking on the road and with that much money, our wallet was stolen and we have lost that money, period. I took money from these friends. I never took money from friends who were saying what would be the return, whether I would be on the board, what would be the benefits to a director. I said, friends, please invest wherever they are promising you good returns. I can't promise you good returns. So you need to understand why people are investing in you. If they are investing you because of friendship and not for returns, they are good friends. But if somebody is investing in you for returns, then he is a good investor, not a good friend.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Well, friends, I'll come back to VPM campus now. And don't worry, Vidya Prasar Manda is not bothered about failures. But then it won't be our failure, let me tell you. If this syllabus fails, that's going to be your failure. Let me assure you, whatever questions we had, Indians are quite intelligent people. Something has gone wrong somewhere. He was talking about Silicon Valley. About 6% population of Silicon Valley was Indians then, and this is about 10, 15 years back. But more than 15% startups, which is a large number, were Indians. I can give you one more example, which you must have forgotten. At the time of independence, many Sindhis came to Bombay, and there's a Ulhasnagar Sindhi camp, you used to call USA. Can you imagine the products they created then? It was very unfortunate that we never took advantage of their very innovative systems. It was a threat to Indian Railways. They created passes, glucose biscuits, Parle glucose, there was a threat to them and whatnot. But imagine they were very, very innovative, they were very hardworking. From where they got the finance, God only knows. But we killed that community by simply criticizing them. So don't do that, don't do that. You have talent, and don't worry about capital. I can assure you that don't worry about capital. As he said, there's huge capital available in the market now. And what you need is patience, passion, and commitment. If you have that, there is no reason why you should fail at all. And those technicalities was what he talked about, valuation, why startups are interested in that. There are little different things. You'll learn them in the course. With these few words, there are some law students I see here, and I can tell them that there is a huge gap, nobody is thinking of starting a startup in the law. And on the world horizon also, there are not many startups in the field of law. But in India, because of a law jungle now, a common man needs a lot of help. So this is a good idea. You can think about it and come to this course and see that how best we can help you. Well, friends, with this few words, we are going to end here, and we are going to cut short the program of thank you also. I would just say thank you, sir, and thank you. Wait for Pasaidan, and the program will end there.
अनवरत भूमंडली खुशी